Hey guys. Tonight, we're going somewhere warm. Somewhere ancient. Somewhere filled with white marble, olive trees, quiet courtyards, clay lamps, sea air. And, apparently, a surprising amount of concern about eyebrows. So, get comfortable. Let your shoulders drop. Let your jaw relax. And if you're lying in bed, there's absolutely no reason to keep your stomach pulled in anymore. Nobody is watching. At least, nobody from ancient Athens. Tonight we're going to travel back more than 2,000 years. To ancient Greece. Not to the Greece of dramatic battles. Not to the Greece of shouting philosophers standing in crowded marketplaces. Not even to the Greece of heroic warriors and angry gods. Instead, we're going to look at something quieter. Something more personal. Something that happened in mirrors. In bronze bowls. In bathing rooms. In women's quarters. In courtyards. And in the private thoughts people had when they looked at themselves. We're going to explore beauty. What did ancient Greeks think was beautiful? What did women do to care for their skin? What did they think about hair? What about eyebrows? What did wealthy women eat? How important was pale skin? What did cosmetics actually contain? And perhaps most interestingly, how different was their idea of beauty from ours? Because here's the strange thing about beauty standards. They feel permanent. Until you look backward. Then suddenly, everything changes. The shape everyone wants changes. The color everyone wants changes. The hairstyle changes. The clothing changes. Even the parts of the body people worry about change. And perhaps that's comforting. Because somewhere, sometime, someone was probably worrying about exactly the opposite thing you're worrying about tonight. So, take a slow breath. In. And out. The city is quiet now. The Mediterranean air is cool. The lamps are beginning to disappear one by one. And somewhere far away, a wave is gently touching the shore. Let's step into the darkness. And begin. Chapter 1, Waking in an Ancient House. Imagine that you are waking before sunrise. There is no alarm. No phone. No bright notification. No little rectangle demanding that you immediately discover what everybody else in the world is doing. Instead, there is darkness. Soft darkness. The kind that exists naturally when thick wooden shutters are closed. You are lying on a simple bed. A wooden frame supports woven cords. Over the cord sits a mattress stuffed with wool or other available material. A light covering rests across your body. The air is cool. Not cold. Just cool enough that you don't immediately want to leave the bed. You shift slightly. The cords make a faint sound. Somewhere outside, a bird begins singing. Another answers. Then a rooster decides that everyone has slept long enough. You close your eyes again. For just a moment. But ancient Greece has no sympathy for your desire to sleep until 10. The household is beginning to wake. Someone is walking across the courtyard. A clay vessel is being moved. A wooden door opens. Then closes. You hear voices. Quiet voices. Not conversation exactly. Just the sounds of people beginning another ordinary day. You slowly sit up. Your hair is probably a mess. And nobody has invented dry shampoo. So, good luck. You run your fingers through it. Then you look toward a small polished bronze mirror. It doesn't give you the perfect reflection of a modern glass mirror. Instead, your face appears slightly distorted. A little darker. A little softer. Almost dreamlike. You look at yourself. And for a moment, You wonder what people would have thought was beautiful. Would they like your face? Your hair? Your skin? Your figure? Your clothes? Your eyebrows? Would they think you looked healthy? Elegant? Too pale? Not pale enough? Too thin? Too heavy? Too ordinary? The questions are different. But the feeling is familiar. Humans have always looked at themselves. And humans have always wondered how other humans see them. That part hasn't changed. Only the rules have. Chapter 2, The Body Beautiful. Now imagine walking slowly through an ancient Greek city. The streets are beginning to brighten. Sunlight touches the tops of buildings. Marble catches the first golden light. People move between houses and shops. You notice something. The ancient Greek idea of beauty wasn't simply one fixed body shape. There were different ideals. Different artistic traditions. Different preferences. And different expectations for men and women. Greek art often celebrated proportion. Balance. Harmony. A body that seemed orderly. Healthy. And pleasing to the eye. The famous sculptors of the classical period weren't simply asking, "How big is this person?" They were asking, "How do all the parts relate to one another?" The Greeks were fascinated by proportion. The relationship between shoulders and waist, arms and legs, head and body, movement and stillness, strength and softness. And because of this, beauty was often connected to harmony. Not necessarily perfection. Harmony. You might have curves. You might be slender. You might have a softer belly. You might have strong legs. What mattered in the artistic imagination was often the overall balance. This is important. Because the internet loves simple historical claims. Ancient Greece loved curves. Ancient Rome loved something else. Victorians loved something completely different. And so on. History is rarely that neat. Real people, as usual, were much more complicated. Some bodies were admired. Some bodies were mocked. Some were considered desirable. Others were associated with poverty, illness, age, or hard labor. Beauty standards existed. But they weren't universal laws. They were social ideas. And social ideas change. Chapter 3, The Goddess in Marble. Now, picture a sculptor's workshop. It is warm. Dust floats through the sunlight. There are stone fragments everywhere. The smell of freshly worked marble fills the room. A sculptor stands quietly beside a half-finished figure. The figure is female. The stone is still rough in places. The face isn't finished. The hair is only suggested. But the body is beginning to emerge. The sculptor steps back. Looks. Steps closer. Looks again. A small adjustment. A little more here. A little less there. The ancient Greek sculptor is not simply copying a person. The sculptor is creating an idea. An idealized body. A body that represents something. Youth. Beauty. Grace. Fertility. Divinity. Desire. The goddess Aphrodite becomes one of the most important figures in this world of beauty. And yet, even Aphrodite changes depending on the artist and period. She can be modest. She can be playful. She can be powerful. She can be shown protecting herself from the viewer. She can be shown bathing. She can be shown turning away. Her beauty isn't simply about being exposed. Sometimes, the suggestion of modesty makes the image more powerful. The viewer imagines what isn't shown. And perhaps that's one reason Greek art can feel so strangely calm. There is movement. But there is also restraint. The body exists. But it is arranged with deliberate balance. A shoulder turns. A hip shifts. The weight moves onto one leg. The figure becomes relaxed. Natural. Almost as if the statue has forgotten it is being watched. You stand there quietly, looking at the marble. And for a moment, you stop thinking about modern beauty. You simply see a person-shaped idea carved into stone. Chapter 4, The Pale Face. Now we return to the house. The sun is higher. And you are preparing yourself for the day. One of the first things you notice is the light. Ancient Mediterranean sunlight is strong. Very strong. And pale skin could carry social meaning. This wasn't necessarily because Greeks thought darker skin was inherently ugly. It was also connected to lifestyle. People who worked outdoors became more tanned. People who spent more time indoors could remain lighter. For some women of wealthier households, a lighter complexion could therefore suggest that they were protected from constant outdoor labor. In other words, skin color could become a social signal. Not unlike clothing. Not unlike jewelry. Not unlike the quality of your sandals. The body could communicate your place in society without saying a word. You step closer to the mirror. Your face is still sleepy. Your hair is uncombed. And someone brings out a small container. Cosmetics. Ancient cosmetics. And this is where things become interesting. Because beauty products have never been completely safe. Modern people have preservatives. Labels. Ingredients. Warnings. Expiration dates. Ancient people had experience. Tradition. And occasionally, things that would make a modern dermatologist sit down very slowly. Chapter 5, Cosmetics of the Ancient World. Imagine a small cosmetic container. Maybe made from pottery. Maybe from stone. Maybe from glass if you're wealthy enough and living in a later period. Inside is a carefully prepared substance. Powder. Oil. Pigment. Something for the lips. Something for the eyes. Something for the skin. The ingredients depend on what is available. Minerals. Plants. Oils. Waxes. Pigments. Some mixtures could be harmless. Others, not so much. Ancient cosmetics sometimes included substances containing lead or other materials that modern science recognizes as hazardous. And yet, to someone living thousands of years ago, a cosmetic wasn't toxic. It was simply a cosmetic. If the recipe had been used for generations, if your mother had used it, if your grandmother had used it, then surely it worked. That is how traditions survive. Not because everyone understands chemistry, but because someone once tried something. It seemed useful. And then everyone remembered it. You watch as a small amount of pigment is prepared. The color is dark. Deep. Almost black. It will be used around the eyes. The effect is subtle. At least, by ancient standards. Your face begins to change. Not dramatically. Just enough. The eyes become more noticeable. The skin appears smoother. The lips receive a little color. And suddenly, you look less like someone who just woke up. And more like someone who is ready to be seen. Chapter 6, The Eyes. The eyes were important. Very important. And perhaps that's not surprising. Across human history, people have emphasized the eyes. Egyptians did it. Greeks did it. Romans did it. Modern people do it. The tools change. The fascination doesn't. In ancient Greece, eye cosmetics could help define the shape of the eyes. Dark pigments could create contrast. The white of the eye appeared brighter. The gaze appeared stronger. And perhaps there was something almost theatrical about it. You look into the bronze mirror. Your eyes look larger. Darker. More dramatic. You blink. The powder doesn't move. You lean closer. There. A tiny imperfection. You fix it. Then you realize. People thousands of years ago probably had the same little moments. The same frustration. The same desire for symmetry. The same feeling of. That side looks better than this side. You smile. Because suddenly ancient Greece doesn't feel so ancient. Chapter 7, The Eyebrows. Now. We arrive at the eyebrows. And yes. They deserve their own chapter. Because eyebrow fashion has had an extraordinary history. Today. People pluck. Trim. Shape. Fill. Lift. Laminate. Draw. Ancient Greek beauty culture could value fuller brows. Some literary and artistic evidence suggests that a connected or strongly emphasized brow could be admired in certain contexts. But again, it wasn't one universal rule. Different places and periods had different fashions. Still, imagine yourself standing before the mirror. Your eyebrows are not tiny. They're not perfectly sculpted into two delicate arches. They're natural. Full. Dark. Perhaps almost touching in the middle. You look at yourself. And instead of thinking, "Oh no," you think, "Excellent." You leave them alone. No tweezers. No brow appointment. No tiny magnifying mirror. No 15-minute argument with your reflection. Just eyebrows. Living their best ancient Greek life. And perhaps that is strangely relaxing. Chapter 8, Hair. Hair requires more work. Much more. Ancient hairstyles could communicate age, status, occasion, and taste. Hair could be braided, tied, wrapped, pinned, decorated, perfumed. The wealthy could devote considerable time to appearance. You sit while another woman helps arrange your hair. She works slowly, separating sections, twisting, braiding, pinning. A small decorative element is added. You feel the weight of the hairstyle. You tilt your head. It stays. Good. You stand. It stays. Even better. Now you understand why people spent so much time doing this. Because once your hair is arranged, you feel transformed. Not into someone else. Just into a more deliberate version of yourself. You look into the bronze mirror again. The woman staring back at you is composed. Quiet. Prepared. She belongs to this world. Chapter 9, Perfume. Now comes perfume. The ancient world loved scent. And the Mediterranean provided plenty of materials. Olive oil was fundamental. It could serve as food, medicine, skin care, and a base for scented preparations. Flowers, herbs, spices, resins, aromatic plants. These could create fragrances. Imagine a small vessel being opened. A warm scent rises. Not sharp. Not synthetic. Something softer. Something green. Something floral. You touch a little oil to your wrist. Then your neck. Perhaps your hair. The fragrance stays close to the skin. It doesn't announce you from 20 meters away. It follows you quietly. Like a secret. You walk into the courtyard. The morning air moves through your hair. The fragrance mixes with olive trees. Warm stone. Smoke from a cooking fire. And the distant smell of the sea. For a moment, the entire world smells ancient. Chapter 10, The Bath. Eventually, you go to bathe. Bathing was more than simply removing dirt. It could be social, relaxing, practical, ritual, and deeply connected with Greek ideas about cleanliness and the body. Water is poured. The room is warm. Steam rises. You sit quietly. There is no music. No phone. No podcast. No notifications. Just water. A cloth. Oil. And conversation. Someone is talking nearby. You aren't listening. You don't need to. The rhythm of the voices is comforting. You wash. Then dry. Oil is applied to the skin. The body feels warm and smooth. You breathe slowly. And suddenly, you understand something about ancient life. People did not necessarily experience time the way we do. There was less constant interruption. No screen every few seconds. No endless stream of information. A bath could simply be a bath. A moment. A pause. A little pocket of time in which nothing needed to happen. Chapter 11, Olive Oil and the Body. Olive oil is everywhere. In cooking. In lamps. In medicine. In grooming. And on skin. You warm a little oil between your hands. Then gently smooth it across your arms. The skin shines slightly. The oil catches the sunlight. Your skin feels softer. There is something comforting about it. Warm oil. Warm air. Stone beneath your feet. A distant bird. And the quiet rhythm of household life. The Greeks understood that the body required care. Not necessarily because every person was obsessed with appearance. But because grooming was part of living. Just as eating was part of living. Just as bathing was part of living. Just as sleeping was part of living. Beauty was woven into ordinary routines. It wasn't always a special event. Sometimes. It was simply what you did in the morning. Chapter 12, Food and Beauty. And now. Breakfast. Or something close to it. Bread. Olives. Cheese. Figs. Perhaps honey. Maybe fruit when available. Food in ancient Greece varied greatly depending on location, wealth, season, and time period. There was no single ancient Greek diet. But grains were important. Olives were important. Wine was common. Legumes could be important sources of food. Fish was available, especially near the coast. And honey provided sweetness in a world without modern sugar. You sit down. The bread is still warm. You break off a piece. Dip it. Eat slowly. Nobody is counting calories. There is no fitness tracker. No little digital circle waiting to be closed. No notification telling you that you've been sitting too long. You simply eat. And then. You eat a little more. Because it tastes good. And perhaps that is one of the most peaceful things about this imaginary morning. You are not negotiating with yourself. You are simply hungry. So you eat. Chapter 13, The Reality of Food. But ancient Greece wasn't a permanent feast. Food security was fragile. Harvests could fail. Wars could interrupt trade. Poor households lived very differently from wealthy ones. So the idea that everyone wandered around ancient Athens eating endless figs and honey would be misleading. For many people, food was work. Someone had to grow it. Someone had to harvest it. Someone had to grind the grain. Someone had to bake the bread. Someone had to carry water. Someone had to cook. Beauty might be admired, but survival came first. And this is where history becomes more interesting than fantasy. The beautiful statue doesn't show the tired person who carried the water. The painted vase doesn't always show the woman who spent hours preparing food. The marble body doesn't show the aching feet. Every ideal exists alongside ordinary labor. And ordinary labor is where most people actually lived. Chapter 14, Clothing and the Female Silhouette. Now, you dress. The clothing is light, layered, often made from wool or linen depending on the garment and season. The fabric falls around your body. There are folds everywhere. Ancient Greek clothing was not usually cut and sewn into the modern tailored shapes we're familiar with. Instead, large pieces of cloth could be wrapped, folded, pinned, and belted. This means the clothing itself creates the silhouette. A belt can emphasize the waist. A fold can soften the body. A draped fabric can make movement look graceful. You walk. The cloth moves. You turn. The fabric follows. And suddenly, the body doesn't need to be perfectly visible. It is suggested. Hidden. Revealed. Then hidden again. There is something almost soothing about this. You don't have to constantly adjust your clothes. You simply walk. And the fabric moves with you. Chapter 15, Jewelry. Now comes jewelry. Not everyone could afford much. But jewelry could communicate wealth and status. Gold. Silver. Glass. Stone. Beads. Small decorative pieces. You choose something simple. Perhaps a necklace. Perhaps earrings. Perhaps a bracelet. You hold it in your hand. It is cool. Heavy enough to feel real. You put it on. The metal catches the light. A little sparkle. Nothing excessive. Just enough. You look into the bronze mirror. And there it is. The finished appearance. Hair arranged. Skin cared for. Eyes emphasized. Clothing draped. Jewelry added. And for the first time this morning, you look ready. Chapter 16, Beauty and Status. Now imagine walking outside. People notice. But they don't necessarily stop. Beauty is often quiet. A glance. A second look. A compliment. A little curiosity. A whispered observation. Ancient societies were deeply concerned with status. Who your family was. How much wealth they had. Who you married. What household you belonged to. How you behaved. How you dressed. How you presented yourself. Beauty could become part of that social language. But it wasn't enough by itself. A beautiful appearance didn't magically erase social rules. Women in ancient Greek societies, particularly in Athens, lived under significant restrictions compared with modern expectations. Their lives were shaped by family, marriage, household responsibilities, social class, citizenship, and gender. The fantasy of ancient beauty should never make us forget the limits of ancient life. You could have beautiful hair. And still have very little freedom. You could wear expensive jewelry. And still have decisions made for you. You could be admired. And still not be independent. History is full of contradictions. And perhaps that is why it is worth studying. Chapter 17, The Women's Quarters. Inside the household. Life continues. There are rooms associated with women and domestic activity. Textiles are everywhere. Wool. Linen. Threads. Baskets. Tools. The sound of work fills the room. Spinning. Weaving. Preparing clothing. Preparing food. Managing household tasks. Beauty doesn't exist separately from this. A woman could be caring for a child one moment, and arranging her hair the next. She could prepare cosmetics, then return to textile work. She could speak with relatives, then organize the household. Ancient life was not divided neatly into categories. There was no separate self-care era. Life happened all at once. Chapter 18, Mirrors. Let's return to the mirror. This time, look carefully. The bronze surface is imperfect. Your reflection is faint. The light changes it. You move closer. Your face changes. You move away. It changes again. Imagine growing up without seeing yourself perfectly every day. No selfies. No front camera. No bathroom mirror covering an entire wall. No video call. No photograph every morning. Your relationship with your own face would be different. You might remember yourself more than you see yourself. Other people might describe your appearance. Your mother. Your friends. Your husband. Your relatives. Artists. Poets. And perhaps you would spend less time inspecting tiny imperfections. Not because you were more confident, but because the technology for endless self-observation didn't exist. There is something deeply peaceful about that. You cannot zoom in on your forehead. You cannot enlarge a photograph. You cannot compare yourself with 10,000 strangers before breakfast. You simply exist. Chapter 19, The Pressure to be Beautiful. Of course, ancient people were not free from insecurity. They worried. They compared themselves. They wanted admiration. They wanted to be desirable. They wanted to look young. They wanted healthy skin. They wanted beautiful hair. They wanted good clothes. They wanted approval. Human beings haven't changed that much. The tools have changed. The pressure has changed shape. But the feeling remains. A young woman might wonder, am I beautiful? A modern woman might ask the same thing. The answer might be judged by a different standard. But the question is ancient. Perhaps even older than cities. And maybe the best answer isn't to win the beauty competition. Maybe the answer is to notice how temporary the rules are. One century admires one shape. Another admires another. One period celebrates pale skin. Another celebrates a tan. One generation loves thin eyebrows. Another wants them thick. One decade wants curves. Another wants sharp angles. The human body remains. The rules move around it. Chapter 20, The Marketplace. Later in the morning. You walk toward the marketplace. The city is fully awake now. Voices everywhere. Merchants calling. Animals moving. People bargaining. Clay pots stacked in rows. Fish laid out for sale. Olives. Bread. Figs. Herbs. Spices. Wool. Leather. Metal tools. The air is full of smells. Some wonderful. Some less wonderful. You pass a food stall. Someone is cooking. You smell bread. Then roasted meat. Then herbs. Then smoke. You keep walking. A group of women passes. Their clothing moves in the breeze. One woman has carefully arranged hair. Another has almost no visible cosmetics. Another is dressed very simply. And you realize There was never one ancient Greek woman. There were millions of individual women. Different faces. Different bodies. Different lives. Different dreams. Chapter 21, Athens. Athens is noisy. Athens is crowded. Athens is beautiful. Athens is dirty. Athens is philosophical. Athens is practical. Athens is contradictory. Marble temples stand above streets where ordinary people walk through dust. Beautiful statues exist beside workshops. Philosophers debate existence while someone nearby is trying to sell onions. A poet talks about love. A merchant argues about money. A child runs through the street. A donkey refuses to move. Someone laughs. Someone complains. Someone is late. Someone is hungry. And somewhere, a woman is looking into a bronze mirror, wondering whether her hair looks good. Thousands of years later, that thought will still make perfect sense. Chapter 22, The Gymnasium. Now we enter a very different world. The gymnasium. Ancient Greek culture placed enormous importance on physical fitness for men. The male body was celebrated in art. Strength. Athleticism. Muscle. Balance. Movement. The ideal male body could represent discipline and excellence. But women were not simply expected to follow the same standard. The ideals were different. And this difference reveals something important. Beauty standards are connected to what society expects people to do. Men were often associated with public life, military service, athletics, and political participation. Women were often associated more strongly with household roles, marriage, family, and domestic life. Different roles produced different ideals. The body was never just a body. It was a social message. Chapter 23, Youth. Youth was valuable. As it has been in many cultures. Smooth skin. Healthy appearance. Full hair. Energy. Freshness. These could all be associated with youth. And aging was something people noticed. There were cosmetics and treatments intended to improve appearance. People have always wanted to slow time. Ancient Greeks could not stop aging. Neither can we. But they could apply oils. Use cosmetics. Arrange hair. Take baths. Choose flattering clothing. And perhaps pretend. Just for a while. That time wasn't moving. You look into the mirror. The light has changed. You notice a tiny line near your eye. You touch it. Then smile. Because the line wasn't a problem. It was simply evidence. You had lived another day. Chapter 24, The Sea. Now. Let's leave the city. Walk with me toward the sea. The road slopes gently downward. The sunlight is warmer. The wind carries salt. You can hear gulls. The sea is blue. Endlessly blue. You sit on a stone. Your feet are warm. Your hair moves in the breeze. You don't need cosmetics here. You don't need jewelry. You don't need the perfect hairstyle. The sea doesn't care. The waves don't care. The olive trees don't care. And perhaps, for a few minutes, neither should you. Just breathe. Listen. The water comes closer. Then moves away. Closer. Away. Closer. Away. The rhythm repeats. Like breathing. Like sleep. Like time. Chapter 25, The Gods and Beauty. The ancient Greeks imagined gods as beings who embodied extraordinary qualities. Beauty. Strength. Wisdom. Love. War. Music. Hunting. The gods were not simply religious figures. They were part of stories, art, poetry, festivals, family traditions. The goddess Aphrodite represented beauty and desire. Athena represented wisdom and strategy. Artemis was associated with the wilderness and hunting. Hera with marriage and queenship. Each figure offered a different image of femininity. There was no single way to be a woman. There were many. And myths often contradicted one another. A goddess could be loving and dangerous, beautiful and terrifying, protective and cruel. The ancient world did not require its gods to be psychologically simple. They were complicated. Just like people. Chapter 26, The Beauty of Balance. Perhaps the most important Greek idea to remember is balance. Balance in art. Balance in architecture. Balance in philosophy. Balance in the body. Balance between excess and deficiency. Too much. Too little. The ideal often sat somewhere in between. Not extreme. Not chaotic. Harmonious. And this gives us a useful way to understand Greek beauty. Instead of asking, was the ideal woman thin or curvy? We might ask, what kind of body looked harmonious to the people creating and viewing this art? The answer changes. But harmony remains. A graceful posture. A calm face. Healthy appearance. Well-kept hair. Pleasant clothing. Balanced proportions. These mattered. And perhaps that is much more interesting than a simple claim about weight. Chapter 27, Evening. The day is ending. The sunlight turns gold. The marketplace becomes quieter. Shadows stretch across the street. People return home. Cooking fires begin to glow. The smell of dinner spreads through the neighborhood. You walk back toward the house. Your feet are tired. Your hair is no longer perfect. The perfume has faded. The cosmetics are softer now. And somehow, you look better. Not because you are more beautiful. Because you look lived in. The day has happened. You have walked. Eaten. Talked. Worked. Rested. Watched the sea. And now, you are tired. The good kind of tired. The kind that makes sleep feel deserved. Chapter 28, Removing the Cosmetics. Inside. You begin preparing for bed. The jewelry comes off first. One piece. Then another. The hairpins are removed. Your hairstyle slowly disappears. The braids loosen. Your hair falls around your shoulders. You look into the bronze mirror. The face looking back at you is simpler now. No carefully emphasized eyes. No carefully arranged hair. Just you. You wash. The water is warm. You remove the day's dust. The last traces of cosmetics. The scent of perfume. Everything disappears. And underneath, there is simply a human face. A face that doesn't need to represent anything. A face that doesn't need to impress anyone. A face that is allowed to rest. Chapter 29, The Night House. The household becomes quiet. One person speaks softly in another room. Someone closes a door. A lamp flickers. The flame moves. The shadows move with it. You return to your bed. The mattress waits. You lie down. The wool beneath you settles. The wooden frame gives a quiet creak. You pull the covering up. Your body relaxes. The room is dark again. Just as it was this morning. Only now. You are tired. Outside. Athens continues. Somewhere someone is awake. Someone is talking. Someone is walking. A dog makes a sound. A distant voice rises. Then disappears. The city never becomes completely silent. But from inside your room, it feels very far away. Chapter 30, Beauty Through Time. Before you fall asleep, think about something. 2,000 years from now, what will people think was beautiful about us? Will they understand why we spent so much time staring into mirrors? Will they understand why certain body shapes became fashionable? Why people changed their hair? Why people cared about skin? Why people took thousands of photographs of themselves? Maybe they'll find it strange. Maybe they'll smile. Maybe they'll wonder why everyone seems so concerned with the same things. And perhaps they will realize something. We were human. Just like the people of ancient Greece. We wanted to be liked. We wanted to feel attractive. We wanted to belong. We wanted to feel comfortable in our own bodies. We wanted other people to see something beautiful when they looked at us. That desire has survived everything. Empires. Wars. Languages. Religions. Technologies. Centuries. The desire remains. Chapter 31, Letting Go. But tonight, you don't need to win. You don't need to compare. You don't need to measure yourself against an ancient statue. You don't need to measure yourself against a modern photograph. You don't need to become anybody else's idea of perfection. Your body doesn't need to be a historical artifact. It doesn't need to resemble marble. It doesn't need to resemble a painting. It doesn't need to resemble someone on a screen. It only needs to carry you gently through another day. And now, it can rest. Let your shoulders become heavy. Let your hands relax. Let your legs become still. Let your stomach soften. Let your breathing slow. There is nowhere you need to go. Nothing you need to fix. Nothing you need to prove. Tonight, you can simply exist. Chapter 32, The Last Walk. Imagine one final walk through ancient Athens. The city is asleep. Moonlight rests on the rooftops. The stones are cool. The streets are nearly empty. You pass the agora. Empty now. The marketplace that was full of voices during the day is quiet. You pass a fountain. Water moves softly. You pass a courtyard. A lamp burns behind a doorway. You keep walking. Up a small hill. The city opens beneath you. There are scattered lights. Dark rooftops. The distant sea. And above everything, stars. So many stars. No electric lights to compete with them. No airplanes. No glowing towers. Just darkness. And stars. You look upward. For a moment, the people who lived here feel close. Not because you can see them, but because they looked at the same sky. They felt the same cool night air. They listened to waves. They became tired. They fell in love. They worried about their appearance. They ate dinner. They laughed. They lost people. They grew old. They slept. And eventually, they disappeared into history. But the stars remained. Chapter 33, The Final Room. Now return to the house. The final lamp is going out. The room is dark. Your bed is warm. You lie down. Your breathing is slow. In. And out. In. And out. The wooden shutters are closed. The wind touches them gently. A small sound. Then silence. Your eyes grow heavy. The ancient city fades. The marketplace fades. The marble statues fade. The cosmetics fade. The jewelry fades. The mirrors fade. The beauty standards fade. And what remains is simply the quiet rhythm of breathing. In and out. Chapter 34, A Quiet Goodnight. So. Good night, ancient Greece. Good night, Athens. Good night to the women arranging their hair by candlelight. Good night to the sculptors working slowly through marble. Good night to the bakers preparing tomorrow's bread. Good night to the merchants closing their stalls. Good night to the philosophers who probably should have gone to bed hours ago. Good night to the olive trees. Good night to the Mediterranean. And good night to you. Wherever you are tonight. Whether it's early evening, midnight, or, as always, somewhere. Probably 2 in the morning. I hope you're comfortable. I hope the room is quiet. I hope your breathing is slow. And I hope you remember. Beauty has never had only one shape. It has never had only one color. One hairstyle. One body. One face. One century. Beauty changes. Human beings change. Fashion changes. Empires disappear. Cities become ruins. Statues lose their noses. Paint fades. Gold becomes buried. But the simple human desire to feel beautiful, to feel accepted, to feel at home inside your own body, that remains. So let that thought stay with you tonight. You don't have to chase perfection. You don't have to become an ancient Greek goddess. You don't have to become anybody else. You can simply rest. The night is quiet now. The sea is still moving. The olive trees are whispering. The moon is above the rooftops. And somewhere beneath that ancient sky, someone is sleeping. Perhaps dreaming. Perhaps remembering. Perhaps imagining another life. And now, you can dream too. Slowly. Gently. Without needing to go anywhere. Just breathe. In. And out. In. And out. The city grows quieter. The lamps disappear. The stars remain. Your body becomes heavier. Your thoughts become softer. And the ancient world slowly disappears into darkness. Good night. And sleep well. Ending, fade into ambience. Soft Mediterranean night ambience. Gentle ocean waves. Very distant wind. Occasional night birds. No sudden sounds. Long 20 to 30 second pause. The sea. The stars. The quiet streets. The sleeping city. And you. Resting peacefully. As the night continues. Very slowly. Very quietly. Until morning.